My boss took credit for my $500 million deal while I was still sitting in the room. What you're about to see, Grant Kessler announced, tapping the screen, is the result of months of strategic leadership. I watched the slide advance. No mention of who brought the client in. No mention of who negotiated the terms. Just his name, centered, bold. I leaned toward him, quiet. There's a line missing. Grant didn't turn. It's fine. Let me handle this. Across the table, someone nodded approvingly. Impressive execution. Grant accepted it with a smile. It wasn't simple. I am Marin Calloway, 46, Senior Deal Origination Director. I opened the conversation that led to this contract. I ran the numbers. I handled every revision. I stayed when everyone else left. The meeting ended. People stood. Hands were shaken. In the hallway, I caught up to him. That contract includes a 2% commission. He adjusted his cufflinks. This deal needed a single point of leadership. I originated it. He stopped walking, finally looked at me. You should be careful how you frame things. 3 hours later, Human Resources closed the door behind me. Your position has been eliminated. Effective immediately. The folder slid across the table. Eliminated, I repeated. She nodded. No explanation, no apology. I packed my desk while people pretended not to notice. When I told 2 coworkers what happened, one let out a short laugh. 2%, he said, on a $500 million deal. Another shook his head. Grant wouldn't risk that. They believed the version that made them comfortable. I walked out carrying a cardboard box and the sudden clarity that my name had already been erased once that day. That night, I logged into the one system they forgot to lock me out of. What hurts more, losing your job or watching people enjoy your fall? I cleared my desk in silence. A box, a notebook. The framed photo I kept turned face down. Someone hovered near the doorway, pretending to check messages. Hey, Mark murmured, not meeting my eyes. Rough day. Grant took the commission, I replied. 2%. It was in my plan. Mark's mouth twitched. That's not how it works. It is, I said. You've seen the structure. He glanced toward the hall, then back at me. You should be careful saying that out loud. At the elevator, Denise folded her arms. People are talking about what that you're upset and exaggerating. A pause. They think you're spiraling. I set the box down. I originated the deal. She exhaled. Marin. Grant's been telling everyone he had to step in. Clean things up. Clean what up? She lowered her voice. Your process. In the lobby. 2 associates stood near the coffee station. One laughed, not quietly. 2% on $500 million, he said. That's not real money. The other shrugged. She wants it to be. I stepped closer. It's in the plan. Signed. They went still. One raised his hands. Look, we're just saying what we heard. From who a beat? No answer. My phone buzzed. A message from an old client contact flashed and vanished retracted. Then another from a teammate, you should stop posting. It's not helping. I haven't posted anything, I said, more to myself than to them. By the time I reached the street, the version of events had already settled. Grant had rescued a deal. I had lost focus. The commission had never existed. The repetition hardened it into fact. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop. An internal chat thread I still had access to refreshed. A new line appeared. Leadership handled the transition professionally. I closed the window and opened another. The system loaded slowly, then welcomed me by name. They had rewritten the story. They hadn't erased the record. Why would a company erase the person who built the deal from the ground up? I didn't invent my role after the fact. It was written into my offer letter. Senior Deal Origination Director. Grant had said during my hiring meeting 2 years earlier. You find it. You shape it. You carry it across the line. I had smiled then. And when it closes, he slid the commission plan across the table. 2% of total contract value. That's standard for origination. I remembered that sentence clearly, because I asked him to repeat it. The deal didn't appear overnight. It started with a cold introduction and a half-hour call no one else wanted to take. Weeks of follow-ups. Drafts sent back with red lines so dense they looked personal. Late nights answering questions that arrived after midnight. At one point, the client's counsel pushed back on a clause that would have killed the entire agreement. This doesn't work, she said over the phone. We walk if this stays. I rewrote it myself. Sent the revision before sunrise. You saved us. The client's director told me later, "We're moving forward." Every email went through me. Every revision came back to me. When Grant joined the calls near the end, he mostly listened. "Just keep us aligned," he said once. "You've got it." I opened my contract now, scrolling past the language I knew by heart: compensation, incentive structure, origination fee, 2% of gross contract value upon execution. Signed by me, signed by him. I forwarded the clause to the company's general inbox. No commentary, just the document. The response came from legal 2 hours later. "We're reviewing the matter," it read. "Please refrain from further contact with internal stakeholders," I replied once. "This is my role as defined by contract." The answer didn't come. They hadn't erased me because the contract was unclear. They erased me because it wasn't. How do you steal a deal without touching a single dollar? I opened the system timeline and followed the trail backward. The ownership field changed first, not days before the signing, not after. The morning of the closing call, 9:14 in the morning. The name flipped from mine to his. I stared at the entry, time-stamped, logged, permanent. An hour later, my access disappeared. I called it. "I'm locked out of the infrastructure account." A pause. Keys clicking. "Your permissions were updated." "By who?" Another pause. "Management?" "By noon." Legal sent the final draft under Grant's name. I called the associate I had worked with for months. "Why am I not on the document?" Her voice dropped. "I was told to issue it that way." "Told by who?" She hesitated. "Grant said he'd taken over." I leaned back and closed my eyes. The steps were clean, almost elegant. Change the system, remove the witness, issue the paperwork, then cut the person who could object. The firing made sense now. Human resources hadn't moved fast because of performance. They moved fast because timing mattered. I called Grant once, just once. "You locked me out before the deal closed." He didn't deny it. "That was an operational decision. You reassigned ownership, leadership prerogative. You issued documents under your name. That's how accountability works." And the termination A-beat. Controlled. The role evolved. I laughed. "It surprised both of us. So you didn't take the money," I said. "You removed the person entitled to it." His voice cooled. "Be careful, Marin, with confusing process for misconduct." I ended the call. The record sat open in front of me, every change, every click, every name. He had relied on authority, not erasure, on silence, not consent. I exported the audit log and saved it twice. Power had moved quickly. The system had moved faster. What if the one thing they couldn't erase was already watching them? The audit panel loaded without ceremony. No warning, no judgment, just a list, deal ownership. The first line read. I scrolled. My name. Then a second entry beneath it, Grant's. Time stamped 9:14 in the morning, the same morning I lost access. I called Leo from compliance. We had crossed paths during a review years earlier. "I need confirmation on an audit trail," I told him. A pause. "Which system?" "The customer relationship platform, infrastructure pipeline." Another pause, longer. "Those logs don't change." I know, he didn't ask why. "Send the record identifier." Minutes later, my phone vibrated. "Confirmed," he said. "Original owner logged as you. Change executed by executive credentials. Permanent, yes." I opened my employment file next. Compensation, incentives. I hadn't looked at it since the day I signed. The commission plan sat where it always had. Plain language. Origination fee payable upon execution. 2% of gross contract value. Grant's signature rested at the bottom. Inked. Dated. I forwarded the page to legal again, this time, copied to myself. The reply came from a different address. "We acknowledge receipt," it read. "Please direct further communication through counsel." My phone rang before I could close the message. "You should stop," Grant said. "I'm reviewing records," I replied. "You're creating problems." I didn't change the system. Silence. Then, quieter. "This isn't how things work." "I think it is." I said, "It's just not how you expected." I saved the audit file, then the commission plan, then the email thread acknowledging receipt. 3 separate folders. 2 backups. People could deny conversations. They could revise stories. They could laugh. The system didn't care who was comfortable. It recorded what happened. What changes when the client asks the wrong question? The message arrived just after noon. No subject line, just a name I knew. Marin, why did you disappear from our deal? We were told leadership reassigned it. That didn't make sense to us. I stared at the screen. Then I typed back exactly one sentence. I wasn't reassigned. The reply came fast. Then why was Grant suddenly listed as owner? You were the one negotiating with us. I forwarded the thread to legal. No commentary, no interpretation. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. A blocked number. Who are you talking to? Grant asked. I answered a question. You're creating exposure. I'm responding to the client. They don't need to hear your version. My version is documented. He hung up. An hour later, a new email appeared in my inbox. Not addressed to me. Forwarded by someone who didn't sign their name. From Grant Kessler to Finance Subject Commission Review. Marin's 2% is too high. We will restructure after closing. Process the change once documents are issued. The date sat above it. 3 days before the signing. 2 days before my access was cut. 1 day before Human Resources called me in, I called Leo again. That email. I said, can you verify sender and timestamp a pause? Yes. And it's authentic. I forwarded it to legal, then to myself, then to my attorney. The response this time wasn't silence. We are willing to discuss resolution. Legal wrote, privately. Grant called again, voice tight. This didn't have to escalate. It didn't, I said. You escalated it. You're making this personal. You made it contractual. He exhaled, slow. There are ways to end this. I'm listening, quietly. I closed the email window and saved the attachment. Intent wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was written, dated, signed by behavior. They could still refuse to settle. They couldn't pretend they didn't know why. What would you give up to make this all disappear? The offer arrived through my attorney, typed in careful language that pretended to be neutral. The company is prepared to resolve this matter privately. She read aloud, a one-time payment, no admission of wrongdoing. And I asked. She paused. There's a condition. She turned the page and slid it toward me. One paragraph was highlighted. They want a statement, she said. You would acknowledge that the commission dispute arose from a misunderstanding of your role. A misunderstanding, I repeated. They want it signed, dated, confidential. I pictured the email thread, the audit log, the message to finance about restructuring my 2%. All of it reduced to a polite lie. How much, I asked. She named the number. It was large enough to make the room go quiet. It's more than most cases like this, she added. They're nervous. I leaned back. They're not paying for peace. She nodded slowly. They're paying for silence. That afternoon, Grant called one last time. No edge now, just persuasion. You get money, he said. You move on. Everyone saves face. Whose face, I asked. A pause. Yours. They want me to say I imagined it. I said. They want me to help them erase me. You're tired, he replied. This has dragged on. It hasn't dragged, I said. It's been resisted. He lowered his voice. Think about what you lose if this goes public. I already lost my job, I said. I already lost my reputation. What you're offering doesn't give that back. Another pause. Longer this time. So that's your answer. Yes, I signed nothing. I rewrote nothing. I corrected nothing. When the call ended, my attorney closed her folder. If we refuse, she said, this goes to court. I nodded. Then it goes to court. The money would have closed the noise. Silence would have finished the erasure. I chose the record. What does justice sound like when no one can argue anymore? The judge looked down at the file. Counsel, proceed. Grant's attorney stood first, confident, relaxed. This case is built on assumption. He said, Ms. Abba. Callaway was not the owner of the transaction at closing. Leadership reassigned it. No commission was due. Grant didn't look at me. He watched the bench. My attorney rose. We'll start with the system record. She turned to the screen. This is the customer relationship platform used by the company. It logs ownership changes automatically. The defense shifted in their seats. Please note the time, my attorney continued. 9:14 in the morning, deal ownership changed from Marin Callaway to Grant Kessler. The closing call began at 10. Grant leaned toward his attorney, whispered. Who executed the change? The judge asked. My attorney didn't answer. She clicked again. Executive credentials, Mr. Kessler's. The defense stood. Objection overruled. The judge said, Continue. Next came the contract. This is the commission plan signed at hire. My attorney said origination fee of 2% upon execution. Signed by both parties. Grant's signature sat at the bottom. Familiar, undeniable. The judge looked up. Mr. Kessler, do you dispute this signature? No, he said, flat. My attorney nodded and opened the final exhibit. This email was sent 3 days before closing. She read it aloud. Marin's 2% is too high. We will restructure after closing. Process the change once documents are issued. Grant's attorney stood again. That email reflects internal discussion, not intent. The judge leaned forward. It reflects timing. The room settled into a stillness that felt heavy, not tense, finished. Miss Calloway, the judge said, turning to me. Were you informed of this restructuring before your access was revoked? No. Were you terminated before or after the contract executed before? The judge closed the file. That will be all. No gavel, no raised voices. Just the sound of a decision being written into the record. What does accountability look like when no one applauds? The ruling arrived in an email from my attorney. No ceremony, no flourish. The court finds in your favor, she said when she called. The company is ordered to pay the full commission and all associated legal costs. How much, I asked. She read it out slowly, the way people do when they want the number to land. 2% of the executed contract value. $500 million. $10 million, plus fees. I closed my eyes. Not relief, not joy, just the end of pressure. They have 30 days, she added. There's more. What kind of more? An internal investigation has already begun. I heard about that part from someone else. Denise called that evening. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. They put Grant on leave, she said, effective immediately. For how long? No one knows. A pause. They're reviewing everything he touched. Another pause. I'm sorry. I let the silence sit between us. For what? For believing them, she said. For laughing. I didn't correct her. I didn't comfort her either. The next morning, Grant emailed me. Not directly. Copied through legal. This outcome was unexpected. It read, I regret how this escalated. I read it twice, then replied with one sentence. The record reflects what happened. There was no response. A week later, the company issued a short internal notice. Leadership change, no explanation, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just a name removed from a role. I met my attorney once more to sign final documents. You know, she said, sliding the papers over, most people would have taken the settlement. I know. You didn't make this easy. I didn't make it invisible. I said. She smiled once. Professional, that's rare. When the funds cleared, nothing in my life visibly changed. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post. I didn't tell anyone who hadn't already known. What changed was quieter. My name appeared correctly in the public filing. My role was documented. The sequence of events sat in black text, time-stamped, unarguable. No one clapped. No one called it justice. But when people spoke about the deal after that, they stopped saying Grant's name. They used mine. What do you keep when everything else is stripped away? I did not go back to the building. No farewell walk, no victory lap. The badge had already been deactivated, and I had no interest in borrowing their air again. A recruiter called 2 days after the funds cleared. They want to meet, she said. Your name came up. Tell them I'm unavailable, I replied. She hesitated. Permanently. For now, I met my attorney one last time to finalize the closeout. She slid the stamped order across the table, the ink still sharp. You did this the hard way, she said. I did it the only way that left a record. She nodded. That record will outlive all of them. At home. I drafted one final email. No subject line. No explanation. I addressed it to the team list I had once managed. For those who asked what happened, the court record is public. It reflects my role in the transaction and the sequence of events. I'm sharing it here so the facts don't need retelling. I attached the link. I read it once, then I sent it. Responses came in quietly. A few apologies. A few acknowledgements. Most said nothing at all. Silence can be honest when people finally know where they stand. Grant never wrote again. Weeks passed. The noise moved on to something else. The way it always does. New deals. New leaders. New stories told with confidence. Mine didn't need repeating. The truth was filed. time-stamped and archived. It lived where titles couldn't reach and authority couldn't edit. Anyone could find it. No one could undo it. I learned something in the process that had nothing to do with contracts or courts. Power relies on memory being short. It assumes exhaustion will do its work. It waits for people to trade accuracy for peace. I did not win because I was louder or smarter or more ruthless. I won because I refused to help them forget. The life lesson I carry forward is simple and expensive. When your work is real, protect the proof of it. When your name is taken, put it back where it belongs. And when silence is offered as a reward, remember that dignity is not something you can buy back once you sell it. Some things can be reassigned. Some things can be delayed. The truth, once written, stays. The story you are about to hear is a fictional narrative created by the writing team at RevengeAITA. While inspired by real workplace power dynamics and emotional truths many professionals face, all characters, companies, and events are works of fiction. This story explores accountability, dignity, and the consequences of underestimating the wrong person.